The first blow against the door was hard enough to shake snow from the rafters. Evelyn Hart froze with one hand on the latch of Moonridge Relay Station. Wind had screamed through the mountain pass for the last hour, driving snow against the shutters and burying the eastern road. But this was not the wind. Wind did not strike once, pause, then strike again. The second impact came harder. The lantern above the message desk swung on its hook. Evelyn reached for the knife beside the ledger. A third blow came, then silence. Moonridge stood 3 miles from the nearest settlement. In winter, sensible travelers avoided the pass after dark. No rider should have been outside tonight. Evelyn lifted the lantern, crossed the room, and slid open the viewing panel. A wolf stood on the step. Not a mountain wolf. It was enormous, silver at the neck and black across its back. Blood stained its muzzle and front legs. An arrow protruded from above its left shoulder. Evelyn tightened her grip on the knife. The wolf looked directly at her, pale amber eyes. No panic. No warning. In its jaws hung a torn strip of black leather fastened with a broken iron clasp. A wolf's head had been stamped into the metal. Evelyn knew that crest. Royal House Rourke. The wolf dropped the leather onto the snow. "Easy," she whispered. It did not growl. She opened the door only wide enough to step outside. Cold hit her face. The wolf turned away and limped toward the western road. Wait. It stopped and looked back. Blood ran down its leg, yet it made no attempt to lie down. "You're hurt." The wolf turned again and walked into the storm. Evelyn stared after it. It was not wandering. It was leading her. She looked down. Some blood was bright. The rest was darker, and too plentiful to belong to one animal. Her eyes returned to the royal clasp. There were stories about King Gideon's wolf, Ash, who trusted almost no one beyond the king. Evelyn had dismissed most of them. Tonight, she reconsidered. A royal beast wounded this badly would not have crossed the mountain without a reason. She went inside, pulled on her cloak, packed linen, spirits, thread, and yarrow, then grabbed a climbing rope. Before leaving, she opened the relay ledger. If she did not return, someone needed to know where she had gone. Beneath the day's final entry, she wrote, "Followed wolf west. 11:43. Ash waited 20 yards away. "All right," Evelyn muttered. "Show me." The wolf turned toward the old western bridge. Snow erased their tracks quickly. Whenever Evelyn fell behind, Ash stopped until her lantern appeared. 10 minutes later, she smelled smoke, oil, leather, burned hair. The western bridge emerged through the storm. Or what remained of it. One railing was gone. The bridge sagged toward the ravine. A dead horse lay beside the road. Evelyn approached, then stopped. The storm had not broken those supports. The cuts were too straight. Someone had sawed almost completely through them before the bridge collapsed. Ash disappeared over the edge. Evelyn tied her rope around a surviving post and looked down. A man lay against the rocks below. Alive, barely. His black cloak was torn. Blood soaked his side around an arrow below the ribs. His temple was cut. Ash stood over him. Evelyn climbed down. The man was broad-shouldered, wearing expensive travel armor. His sword lay several feet away beneath the snow. She pressed 2 fingers to his throat. Fast pulse. "Weak. Stay stubborn," she murmured. She examined the arrow. It had not passed through cleanly. Pulling it could worsen the wound. Her fingers reached toward the shaft. A hand closed around her wrist. Evelyn nearly drew her knife. The man's eyes opened. Gray. Focused despite the blood loss. "Don't pull it." His voice was rough, but command remained in it. "If you intend to keep giving orders," Evelyn said, "you'll need enough blood left to speak. Break the shaft, leave the head." That was already the plan. His grip loosened. Evelyn snapped the shaft, packed the wound with linen, and studied the exposed arrowhead. Military steel. She looked toward the bridge. Cut supports. royal leather, military arrows. This was an ambush. "What happened?" she asked. "Laughter." Convenient answer. Ash lowered his head beside the man's face. The stranger pressed one hand briefly against the wolf's neck. That was when Evelyn saw the ring. Black iron. The same wolf crest. Her stomach tightened. Royal officers wore expensive armor and the king's colors, but only one man wore that ring. Before she could speak, hoofbeats sounded from the road above. Several horses. Fast. Ash's head snapped toward the bridge. A growl rolled from his chest. "Friends?" Evelyn whispered. The wounded man's eyes sharpened. "I don't know." That answer frightened her more than anything else. Getting him back to Moonridge nearly broke them both. When she lowered him onto the cot, her gloves were slick with blood. Horses stopped outside. 3 riders. Boots struck the porch. A fist pounded against the door. Royal authority. A man called through the storm. "Open the station." Evelyn looked at the wounded stranger. He went completely still. Ash moved between him and the door. Another knock. "We're searching for an injured man." For one heartbeat. Relief almost fooled her. Royal soldiers. "Help!" Then Ash bared his teeth. The growl was low enough to vibrate through the floorboards. Evelyn looked at the wolf, then at the blood on her hands, then at the 3 royal shadows waiting beyond the door. Whoever had tried to kill the man in her station might already have found him. Evelyn did not move. The riders outside knocked again. "Moonridge Keeper," the same man called. "By order of the crown, open the door." Behind her, the stranger shifted on the cot. Pain tightened his face, but his hand had moved toward the sword she had placed against the wall. Evelyn crossed the room first. "Stay down." His gray eyes lifted to hers. "That is not a request." Something almost amused flickered across his face. Then Evelyn opened the viewing panel. 3 men stood on the porch in riding cloaks. Royal wolf clasps gleamed at their shoulders. Their horses steamed in the snow. The leader stepped closer. "We are looking for a wounded man who may have come through this pass." "What happened to him?" The rider hesitated. "Bandit attack." Evelyn thought of the bridge supports deliberately cut. Military steel in the stranger's side. Ash growling behind her. "Then you should search the eastern road," she said. "No one has come through here since dusk." The man studied her through the opening. "You are Evelyn Hart?" "Yes." "Keeper of Moonridge?" "For now." His gaze sharpened. "Open the door." Ash's growl deepened. The rider heard it. "What animal is that?" "Me problem." A second soldier moved toward the window. Evelyn lowered her voice. "I have a wounded mountain wolf inside, and enough blood on the floor already. If you want to enter, I will not stop you. But I will not be the one explaining to your commander why one of you loses a hand. Silence." The leader looked toward the shuttered window, then back at her. "Did you see a royal escort tonight?" "No." The lie came easier than she expected. "And if someone arrives?" "I'll send word." He held her gaze another moment, as if trying to decide whether an Omega alone in a relay station could possibly matter. Then he stepped back. "Keep the road closed until sunrise." The riders mounted and disappeared into the storm. Evelyn waited until the hoofbeats faded. Then she dropped the viewing panel and turned. Ash stood beside the cot, fur raised. The stranger was watching her. "You lied to royal soldiers." "You noticed. They could have searched the station." "They could have. And if they had?" Evelyn glanced at her knife. "I had not developed that part of the plan yet." A rough breath left him that might have been a laugh if he had more strength. She crossed to the cot and unfastened the blood-soaked cloak. "Now tell me why your wolf wanted to tear apart your rescue party." "They were not my rescue party." "You know them?" "No." "That seems inconvenient for a king." His eyes fixed on her. Evelyn pulled the ruined cloth away from his ribs. "I saw the ring." He looked down at the black iron signet on his hand. "And the wolf?" she added. "There are not many silver-black beasts the size of a horse wandering around with the royal crest." "A pause. Gideon Rourke," she said. He did not deny it. The Alpha King. Yes, Evelyn sat back on her heels. For years, she had imagined that meeting the Alpha King would involve banners, guards, polished floors, and at least one person telling her where to stand. Instead, he was bleeding on her spare cot while snow melted from his boots. "All right," she said. His brow shifted. "That is your response? You are still bleeding. Being king has not improved the situation." Something warmer reached his eyes this time. Evelyn cleaned the wound with spirits. Gideon's jaw tightened, but he made no sound. "How many people knew your route?" "6. Names." His expression hardened. "You ask questions like an investigator. I run a relay station. When messages vanish, everyone blames the road. The road is usually innocent." He studied her before answering. "My captain, 2 guards, Royal Marshal Marcus Thorne, my secretary, and me." "Who selected the Western Bridge?" "Marcus recommended it after reports that the main pass was being watched." "You trust him?" "With my life." Evelyn glanced at the arrow wound. That confidence has aged badly. Gideon almost smiled. Almost. When the bleeding finally slowed, Evelyn went to the message desk to check whether the soldiers had left any written order. A folded sheet had been pushed beneath the outer door. She broke the wax. "Royal Search Authorization." Below it was another instruction. "Moonridge Western Route closed by keeper request." Evelyn stopped breathing. At the bottom of the page sat the Moonridge station seal. Her seal. Gideon noticed her silence. "What is it?" She carried the paper to the cot. "I never issued this." He read it once. Then again. The order had been filed hours before the ambush. It claimed Evelyn Hart herself had redirected royal traffic toward the Western Bridge. Gideon looked up. "Who has access to your seal?" "No one." Outside, the storm swallowed the rider's tracks. Inside, Evelyn stared at her own name beneath an order she had never written. Someone had not only planned to kill the Alpha King, they had planned for the kingdom to blame her. Morning arrived without sunlight. The storm weakened before dawn, leaving Moonridge buried. Evelyn had barely slept. Gideon had not slept. She was checking the bandage around his ribs when the relay bell rang. Not the door, the signal bell. Someone had sent a coded message from the Eastern station. Evelyn crossed the room and pulled the brass lever twice. The receiving wheel clicked into motion, scratching marks across paper. Gideon watched from the cot. "What does it say?" "Give me a moment." She translated the code silently, then read it again. Her stomach tightened. "King Gideon Rourke missing after attack. Royal Marshal Thorne assumes search authority. All stations report any sighting of Evelyn Hart. Suspected assistance in royal abduction." Evelyn tore the strip free. Gideon held out his hand. She gave it to him. His expression changed as he read. Marcus moved quickly. He had to. Evelyn looked toward the forged order on the desk. "The longer I remained an unknown relay keeper, the harder it would be to make me guilty." Gideon pushed himself upright. "You will come with me to the capital." She gave him a flat look. "In your condition? I can ride. You nearly fainted standing up an hour ago. I said I can ride, and I am choosing to hear what your body said instead." His jaw tightened. Under different circumstances, Evelyn might have enjoyed irritating a king. Not today. Gideon looked at the message again. "When I reach the capital, I can clear your name." Evelyn went still. The reassurance did the opposite. "My father was told that once." Gideon looked up. She had not intended to say it. The sentence was already between them now anyway. "What happened?" Evelyn folded the signal strip. 8 years ago, a royal dispatch disappeared between Moonridge and the valley. My father was keeper then. They found his seal on a false transfer order. Gideon's face sharpened. He denied issuing it until the day he died. Silence settled over the station. "He was not executed," Evelyn continued. "They stripped his position, his pension, and his name from the relay register. People stopped speaking to him. He spent the rest of his life proving something nobody important wanted proved. Gideon looked toward the forged paper, carrying Evelyn's seal. You believe the same method was used. I believe paper is easy to trust when the person accused has no power. For once, Gideon had no answer. That mattered more than an apology would have. Evelyn packed food, water, spare bandages, the relay ledger page, and the forged order. Then she removed a loose board beneath the message desk and pulled out an old leather map. Gideon frowned. That road is not on current royal charts. Exactly. The winter messenger path had been abandoned after a landslide 6 years earlier. Official patrols used the eastern road now, but Evelyn knew the old route still crossed the ridge safely. If Marcus controls the main roads, she said, then we stop using roads Marcus knows. Gideon stood. Pain flashed across his face, but he remained upright. Ash rose with him. Evelyn noticed the wolf's injured shoulder. You are not climbing another ridge like that. Ash stared at her. She crouched, removed the broken arrowhead, cleaned the wound, and tied linen beneath his chest. The royal wolf allowed it without resistance. Gideon watched. He has bitten physicians for less. Then your physicians probably talk too much. Ash rose and pressed his head once against Evelyn's shoulder. Gideon's eyes narrowed. What? Nothing. That was clearly something. He does not trust strangers. Perhaps he has excellent judgment. This time Gideon smiled. Briefly. It vanished when they stepped outside. The mountain was painfully bright beneath fresh snow. Evelyn led west behind the station, away from the marked trail, then turned north through a narrow cut between pine-covered slopes. Gideon followed. For the first mile he questioned her direction twice. The third time, Evelyn stopped. If you know a better route, Your Majesty, please lead. He looked at the untouched snow ahead, then at Hare. Continue. After that, he stopped questioning the road. By midday, they reached an abandoned shepherd shelter beneath a rock shelf. Evelyn checked Gideon's wound, gave Ash water, then climbed the slope behind the shelter to study their trail. Wind had erased most of it. Most. She found a boot print beneath a pine where snow had not reached. Then another. Fresh. Someone was behind them. Evelyn crouched and examined the tracks. Gideon approached quietly. Marcus? No. How can you know? She pointed. Their follower had ignored Gideon's deeper prints whenever the trails separated. Every correction matched the smaller pattern left by Evelyn's boots. She looked back toward the white forest. They're not tracking you. Her hand moved toward her knife. They're tracking me. The tracks continued north. Evelyn studied the depth of each print and the angle of the heel. Whoever followed knew how to move quietly, but not how to disappear. Gideon watched from beneath the shelter. How close? Close enough to see us. Far enough to wait. For what? For us to make a mistake. They left before noon and cut toward an abandoned signal cabin higher on the ridge. The climb slowed Gideon more than he admitted. Twice his breathing changed when the wound pulled beneath the bandage. Evelyn pretended not to notice until he stumbled. She caught his arm. I am fine. You are bleeding through the linen. I have had worse. That does not make this better. Ash stopped ahead and looked back. Gideon glanced at Evelyn's hand around his forearm. You can let go. I know. She did. The signal cabin was barely more than 4 walls and a collapsed roof, but it had a working stove and one shutter that could still be barred. Evelyn checked for recent tracks. None. For the first time since leaving Moonridge, they could stop. Yet safety felt temporary, thin as the cabin walls, with an unseen tracker somewhere below them on the mountain trail. Evelyn relit the stove, while Gideon removed his cloak. Fresh blood had spread beneath the bandage. Sit. He obeyed without argument. That worried her more than resistance would have. She cut away the damp linen and cleaned the wound. Gideon stared at the opposite wall, shoulders rigid. You do that every time, Evelyn said. What? Look somewhere else when it hurts. I was unaware pain required an audience. It does not. Pretending it is not there usually makes people stupid. His gaze shifted to her. You speak to everyone this way? Only kings who refuse to stay alive properly. A faint smile touched his mouth. Outside, a branch snapped. Both froze. Ash rose without a sound. Voices moved through the trees. Men. Close. Evelyn extinguished the lantern. Gideon reached for his sword. No. His eyes narrowed. If they come through that door, they will see footprints first. Evelyn pointed toward the rear wall, where a narrow storage space had once held signal oil. They moved into it together. The gap was barely wide enough for Gideon's shoulders. Evelyn had to stand almost against his chest, while Ash crouched beneath a broken shelf. Boots approached. A man outside said, "Check it." Another answered, "Thorn wants the Omega alive." Evelyn's breath stopped. The first voice lowered. "And the king?" Pause. "He is worth less alive than she is." Gideon's hand tightened around his sword. Evelyn pressed 2 fingers against his wrist. Not yet. The cabin door opened. Snow blew across the floor. A soldier entered. Through the crack in the boards, Evelyn saw black riding boots and a royal cloak. The man crossed the room. Ash's body trembled with restrained violence. Gideon's breath warmed Evelyn's hair. One movement would end the silence. The soldier stopped beside the stove. He touched the metal, still warm. Evelyn felt Gideon shift. She tightened her fingers around his wrist. Outside, another rider shouted, "Tracks east." The soldier hesitated, then ran from the cabin. The door slammed. Hooves faded toward the false trail Evelyn had made before entering. Neither moved for several seconds. Then Gideon said quietly, "You planned that? The extra tracks?" "Yes. You expected pursuit." "I expected Marcus to be less careless than the men he sent." They stepped back into the cabin. Evelyn returned to Gideon's cloak and picked up the shortened arrow shaft she had carried from the bridge. Something dark coated the wood. Not blood. She scraped it with her knife. A sharp pine smell rose from the surface. Gideon looked over. "What is it?" "Resin. Black fur mixed with wax. Waterproofing. That is common." "Not this mixture." Evelyn held it toward him. "Moonridge uses beeswax. Hunters use animal fat. This is military treatment." Gideon's expression changed. "The Northern Cavalry stores use black fur resin. Then whoever fired this had access to royal supplies." He took the shaft. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he looked toward the shutter. "Marcus commands those stores. Marcus commands half the kingdom. That is not proof." "No." Evelyn met his eyes. "But it is a direction." The room fell quiet. Gideon turned the shaft slowly in his hand. "Why did you save me?" The question caught her off guard. She tied off the new bandage before answering. "I did not save a king." His chaza held hers. "I saved a bleeding man." A beat passed. "Do not make me regret the distinction." Something in Gideon's face softened. Before he could answer, Ash moved to the window and growled. A red light flashed across the distant ridge. Then twice more. Gideon stood. Evelyn looked at the pattern. "Royal rescue signal." "Marcus," Gideon said. Evelyn watched another flash cut through the gray afternoon. "No." Gideon turned. She looked toward the ridge, then the path behind them. "He is not searching for us." Her stomach tightened. He knew where we were going. The signal flashed again from the ridge. 3 short bursts. 1 long. Gideon's face hardened. "That is Marcus's field code." Evelyn extinguished the stove and gathered the bandages, arrow shaft, forged order, and what remained of their food. "If he already knows this cabin, we leave now." They did not make it 10 steps. Hooves thundered through the trees. Ash spun toward the sound, lips peeling back. 6 riders emerged from the snow. The man at their center wore no helmet. His dark hair was silvering at the temples, his cloak fastened with the black iron wolf of the royal marshal. He dismounted before the horse had fully stopped. Gideon. Relief crossed his face so quickly and so convincingly that Evelyn almost believed it. Marcus Thorne dropped to one knee. "My king." Thank the moon. Gideon did not lower his sword. Stand. Marcus obeyed. His gaze moved over the blood on Gideon's tunic, the crude bandage, then finally to Evelyn. His expression changed only slightly. Recognition. Evelyn Hart. She said nothing. Marcus looked back to Gideon. We have been searching every road since the bridge collapsed. The capital believes you may be dead. You sent men to Moonridge? Yes. They told my keeper they were searching for an injured traveler. Marcus's brows drew together. My men were instructed to avoid spreading panic. My keeper? Evelyn almost corrected him. She decided not to. Marcus turned toward her. You found His Majesty? Yes. And moved him off the official road? Yes. Without informing royal command? Yes. Marcus gave a small, thoughtful nod. You also issued an order closing the western route before the attack. I did not. One of his soldiers shifted. Marcus remained calm. The order bears your seal. It was forged. So you say? Ash growled. Marcus glanced at the wolf. Easy, old friend. Ash's growl deepened. For the first time, something cold appeared behind Marcus's eyes. It vanished immediately. He looked at Gideon. You are wounded, exhausted, and surrounded by uncertainty. Come back with me. We can sort this out under guard. And Evelyn, she comes too. As what? Marcus paused. A witness. Evelyn almost smiled. That is not what your message called me this morning. Marcus's attention returned to her. You have seen the royal alert? I run a relay station. Then you understand why questions must be asked. I understand when an answer has already been chosen. Gideon looked between them. Marcus stepped closer. Gideon, listen to me. You disappeared on a route this woman controlled. Her seal appears on the diversion order. She hides you from royal soldiers, removes you from the roads, and now you are standing in an abandoned cabin while my men search half the mountains. Every fact sounded reasonable. That was what made him dangerous. Evelyn looked past Marcus toward the horses. One chestnut gelding pawed at the snow. Its left rear shoe was damaged. A triangular corner was missing. Her pulse changed. At the broken bridge, beneath the shelter of the eastern support, she had seen a partial hoofprint protected from the storm. Same size, same broken corner. She moved closer to Gideon. Look at the chestnut. He did not turn his head. Why? Left rear shoe. His eyes flicked toward the horse. Marcus noticed. What is this? Evelyn spoke quietly. That horse was at the bridge. Marcus smiled. Not cruelly, almost patiently. You can identify one horseshoe in a snowstorm? I can identify damage. Convenient. So is arriving with the evidence. The smile disappeared. Ash stepped forward and sniffed Marcus's glove, then recoiled. A violent growl tore from his chest. Marcus pulled his hand back. He smells the wounded men I have been searching with. Again, plausible. Again, not proof. Gideon's gaze remained on Marcus. Remove your glove. Silence. Marcus did not move. Gideon, remove it. The soldiers behind him reached subtly toward their weapons. Evelyn saw it. So did Gideon. Marcus exhaled. I had hoped you would return quietly. The warmth left his voice. Everything changed. Steel cleared scabbards. Gideon moved first. His sword struck the nearest blade aside as Ash launched at another soldier. Evelyn seized the signal flare from the cabin wall, struck the igniter, and threw it into the snow between the horses. White fire exploded. The animals screamed and reared. Now! Evelyn shouted. She grabbed Gideon's arm and pulled him behind the cabin toward a narrow maintenance trench cut into the slope. Ash followed. Marcus's voice crashed through the chaos behind them. Stop them. Evelyn slid into the trench first. Gideon followed, one hand pressed to his wound as they disappeared beneath the ridge. Behind them, Marcus shouted again. This time, every trace of loyalty was gone. Run if you like, Gideon. His voice echoed through the trees. By sunrise, every pack in the kingdom will believe she kidnapped you. Evelyn kept moving. Gideon looked back once, The worst part was not that Marcus had tried to kill him. It was that Marcus had already decided what the kingdom would believe, and beyond the mountain, that lie was already traveling faster than either of them. The maintenance trench opened onto the far side of the ridge, where the wind had swept the snow almost clean from the rock. Evelyn climbed out first. Gideon followed more slowly. Blood had darkened the edge of his bandage again. "We stop," she said. "We cannot. You can either stop for 5 minutes, or collapse for 50. Ash emerged behind them, favoring his injured leg. Gideon looked back toward the ridge, where Marcus's men were still shouting through the trees. 5 minutes. They sheltered beneath a shelf of stone. Evelyn retied Gideon's bandage, then spread the forged order and the broken arrow shaft across her knees. 3 things. She forced herself to think only about 3 things. The false relay order, the horse that had been at the bridge, the military resin on the arrow. Everything pointed inward. Nothing yet proved why. "There is an old archive station north of here," she said. Gideon looked at her. "How old?" "Old enough that Marcus may have forgotten it exists." "That sounds optimistic. It is the only kind I have left." The archive had been abandoned when the northern relay lines were rebuilt. It took them 2 hours to reach it. The building leaned into the mountain like something trying not to fall. Inside, shelves bowed beneath ledgers swollen with damp. Evelyn lit one lamp. "What are we looking for?" Gideon asked. A mistake. Marcus had forged her seal perfectly. He had predicted the route. He had sent soldiers to find them. People that careful usually failed only when they believed no one would ever look backward. Evelyn opened the route ledger from the month of the ambush. The code beside the forged order bothered her. Not the words. The pattern. She found the old relay index and traced her finger down the page. Then stopped. "Here." Gideon leaned over her shoulder. The forged order used the code M17. "So?" M17 was retired 8 months ago. His expression sharpened. "Why?" "Duplicate routing failures. We replaced it with M24. Who keeps the retired code books?" Evelyn looked at him. "Central Archive. A pause. Under whose authority?" "You already know." Gideon's jaw tightened. Marcus. The first clue had become evidence. Not enough. Evelyn kept searching. She found a supply transfer from the northern cavalry stores. Black fur resin. 6 barrels. Signed out 3 weeks before the attack by a unit attached directly to Marcus's command. Gideon read the page twice. "He told me those supplies were being sent to the eastern forts. They were not." "No." His voice had gone colder. Still, Evelyn knew what he was thinking. Access was not guilt. Marcus commanded thousands of men. A stolen barrel and an old code could still be explained. She needed something he could not explain. She moved to the dispatch shelf. Orders were copied before couriers carried the originals. Most were ordinary. Horse rotations, food, winter patrols. Then Evelyn found the military movement book. Her finger stopped halfway down the page. "Gideon." Something in her voice brought him beside her immediately. She turned the ledger toward him. An order had been issued to 3 border companies. Prepare for emergency mobilization. Destination: Eastern Frontier. Authority: Royal Marshal Marcus Thorne. Gideon stared at the date. Evelyn did not speak. She did not need to. The order had been written 2 days before the bridge collapsed. 2 days before the king disappeared. Gideon read it again. "No." "It is his signature." "I know." He ordered troops toward the border before anyone knew there would be an emergency. Gideon stepped away from the table. For the first time since Evelyn had found him bleeding beneath the bridge, he looked less angry than stunned. He was not improvising after the attack. No, he was waiting for it. Evelyn looked at the map pinned to the wall. 3 companies had been positioned near the neighboring packs. Not near the capital. Not along the search routes. At the border. "He did not need you dead," she said. Gideon looked at her. "He needed you gone." Silence. Understanding arrived slowly. And then, all at once, If Gideon died, the succession council would convene. If Gideon vanished during a foreign crisis, emergency military authority remained with the royal marshal. Marcus could command armies in the king's name. "He wants a war," Gideon said. He wanted one before the bridge. Ash lifted his head. Outside, the old signal bell rang once. Evelyn froze. No wind could move it. Someone had triggered the eastern line. She crossed to the receiving wheel. The mechanism scratched one short message across the paper. Gideon read over her shoulder. King confirmed alive. Judgment compromised. Omega suspect believed to exert illegal influence. All commanders hold position until Regent Council. Evelyn felt cold move through her that had nothing to do with the mountain. Marcus had changed the lie. Gideon being alive no longer ruined his plan. Now it proved the king could not be trusted. He expected this too, Evelyn said. Gideon stared at the message. For the first time, the crown itself had become evidence against him. Not anymore. The message from Marcus reached the capital before they did. By the time Captain Alias Ward found them at dusk, 3 different patrols had already been ordered to arrest Evelyn on sight. Elias took one look at Gideon's blood-stained coat and swore under his breath. "My king." "Not here," Gideon said. Elias nodded once. He was broad, dark-haired, and old enough to have gray at his beard. Unlike Marcus, he did not perform loyalty. He simply moved. "I have 12 men waiting beyond the ridge. All mine." "All yours?" Evelyn asked. Elias looked at her. "All men I would trust with my children." "That is a better answer." They rode through the night toward a fortified way station outside the capital. Gideon remained beside Evelyn despite the pain in his side. Ash stayed on her other flank. For the first time in days, Evelyn allowed herself to believe they might actually reach a room where truth mattered. That belief lasted less than 10 minutes. The moment they entered the way station, Elias's lieutenant approached with a sealed satchel. "Found in the Omega's pack." Evelyn stopped. "My pack?" The lieutenant opened the satchel. Inside were 3 letters bearing foreign marks, a payment ledger, and a detailed sketch of the Western Bridge. Evelyn stared at them. She had never seen any of it. Elias looked at Gideon. "There is more." A stable boy had given a sworn statement, claiming he saw Evelyn meeting 2 foreign riders near Moonridge 3 nights before the ambush. Another forged record showed payment transferred to an account under her father's name. Marcus had not built one accusation. He had built a history. Gideon read the first letter, then the second. Evelyn watched his face change. Not because he believed Marcus, because the evidence was designed so carefully that he could not dismiss it without appearing compromised. "Say it," she said. Gideon looked up. "Evain, say what you are thinking." Elias shifted uncomfortably. Gideon placed the letter on the table. "If I ignore this publicly, Marcus will use it to prove his claim that my judgment has been influenced." "Is your judgment influenced?" "No." "Then what is the problem?" "The kingdom does not know what I know." Evelyn laughed once. There was no humor in it. "What do you know?" Gideon's eyes held hers. "That you saved my life. That is not the same as knowing I am innocent." Silence. Ash moved closer to her leg. Elias looked between them. "We can delay the council hearing until morning." "No," Gideon said. Evelyn felt something inside her go still. He continued carefully. "Evelyn Hart will be held under royal protection until the council can review the evidence." The room changed. No one moved. Evelyn looked at him for a long moment. "Held. Protected. Do not change the word, because you dislike how it sounds." Gideon's jaw tightened. "This is temporary. So was what happened to my father. That is not what this is." "No?" Her voice remained quiet. That hurt more than shouting would have. "When you were bleeding in the snow, you trusted the person standing in front of you." Gideon said nothing. Evelyn reached beneath her cloak and removed the small black iron protection token he had given her on the road. It carried the royal wolf crest and guaranteed passage through any loyal checkpoint. She placed it on the table between them. Now you are wearing the crown again. Evelyn, I understand. No, you do not. I understand perfectly. She looked at the forged letters. The paper is speaking, and you have always preferred paper. Something in his face broke. Only slightly. Evelyn turned before she could care. 2 guards escorted her downstairs. She did not resist. She did not look back. That was the part Gideon had not expected. He had expected anger, argument, maybe even hatred. The silence she left behind was worse. The cell was clean, dry, and guarded by Elias's men. Royal protection, exactly as Gideon had promised. A locked door was still a locked door. Evelyn sat on the narrow bench and folded her hands. Minutes later, heavy paws sounded in the corridor. Ash appeared. The guard stepped aside. The wolf walked directly to Evelyn's cell and lay down before the bars. An hour later, Gideon came downstairs. Ash. The wolf lifted his head. Come. Ash did not move. Gideon's voice hardened. Ash. The royal wolf looked at him, then lowered his head onto his paws. For the first time since Gideon had become king, Ash refused him. Gideon stood there in silence. Inside the cell, Evelyn did not turn around. Later that night, Boots approached. Not Gideon's. A guard unlocked the door. Transfer order. Evelyn frowned. The hearing is here. Changed. By whom? The guard avoided her eyes. 2 unfamiliar soldiers stepped forward. Ash rose and growled. One lifted a crossbow. Evelyn understood. This was not a transfer. Marcus could not risk letting her speak before the council. The soldier grabbed her arm. Move. As they forced her toward the rear courtyard, Evelyn heard one man whisper to another. Take the prison road. And the king? He will hear she tried to escape. A pause. Then the words that erased the last doubt. She will not make it to sunrise. Evelyn looked once toward the locked corridor behind her. Gideon had chosen the evidence. Now she would have to choose whether she survived. The prison road climbed north through a narrow cut in the hills, away from the capital and away from anyone who might ask questions. Evelyn rode between 2 soldiers with her wrists bound in front of her. No one had told her where they were taking her. They did not need to. The road itself told her enough. They passed the 3rd stone marker 20 minutes after leaving the way station. Then an abandoned watchtower. Then a frozen stream crossed by 2 leaning pines. Evelyn knew this route. Old Messenger Road, unused for years, which meant there would be no witnesses. The soldier on her left noticed her looking. Stop counting. I wasn't. He hit her shoulder with the back of his hand. Then stop thinking. That almost made her smile. Men like him always feared the wrong thing. They feared knives. They feared wolves. They feared kings. They rarely feared a woman who knew exactly where she was. The road curved around a ridge. Evelyn looked toward the sky. Moon position. Wind direction. Distance from the stream. They were less than a mile from an old relay checkpoint. If the signal frame still stood, there might be a way. Behind them, something moved through the trees. One soldier turned. What was that? Wind. It was not wind. Evelyn had heard ash move through snow before. She kept her face empty. At the same time, miles behind them, Gideon stood in the way station office, staring at the forged letters spread across the table. He had read them 3 times. Something was wrong. Not the foreign seals. Not the payment marks. The dates. One letter claimed Evelyn arranged payment through her father's account 6 months earlier. Her father had been dead for years. That alone could be explained as a hidden account, but the route code stamped beneath the signature could not. M. de Jubiles. Retired 8 months ago. Gideon reached for the forged order from Moonridge. Sama code. Same mistake. Marcus had repeated it because he believed no one would look closely enough. Ash's refusal outside Evelyn's cell returned to Gideon like an accusation. So did her voice. The paper is speaking. And you have always preferred paper. Elias. Captain Ward entered. Gideon held up the documents. Who authorized her transfer? Elias frowned. No one. Gideon went still. Then everything moved at once. On the prison road, Evelyn saw the checkpoint, half collapsed, exactly where she remembered it. The signal mast leaned against the hill, but the shutter box remained attached. Her horse passed within 15 feet. Evelyn let herself slip sideways. The soldier grabbed her. "What are you doing?" "My saddle is loose," he cursed, and dismounted. That was enough. Evelyn kicked free of the stirrup, dropped into the snow, and rolled beneath the horse before the second soldier could react. She ran toward the checkpoint. A crossbow snapped behind her. The bolt struck the wooden post beside her head. "Stop her!" Evelyn reached the shutter box. Rust had frozen the handle. She struck it with both bound hands. Once, twice. It broke loose. Behind her came shouting. She pulled the shutter open, then slammed it closed. Open, closed, open twice. A relay distress pattern. Not royal code. Keeper code. Alder. Simple. Help at station. Armed threat. She repeated it toward the southern ridge. A soldier caught her cloak and dragged her backward. "You stupid!" A growl exploded from the trees. Ash hit him from the side. The man disappeared into the snow. The second soldier raised his crossbow. Evelyn drove her shoulder into his chest before he could fire. The weapon went off into the air. Ash stood over the first man, teeth at his throat, waiting. Not attacking. Waiting. Evelyn understood. "Leave him." Ash released the soldier and turned toward her. Then horns sounded from the southern ridge. Captain Elias's patrol appeared between the pines. He had seen the signal. By the time Gideon arrived, both false guards were bound. Evelyn stood beside the broken checkpoint, warming her hands over a lantern. Gideon dismounted. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then he stepped toward her. "I was wrong." Evelyn looked at him. "Yes, I found the code. Good. I should have. Later." Her voice was tired, not cruel. She looked past him toward Elias. "Marcus called the Regent Council for dawn, didn't he?" Elias nodded. "And the border companies?" "Already ordered to march." Evelyn looked toward the dark horizon. There was no time left for forgiveness, only truth. "Then apologize after we stop the war," she said. Gideon held her gaze. This time, he did not argue. Far below, from the direction of the capital, the first council bell rolled across the mountains. A second followed. Marcus was not waiting for morning anymore. He was already taking the kingdom from them. The council chamber was full when Gideon entered. Conversation died at once. Marcus stood beneath the iron crest of House Rourke, with one hand on the regent's staff. Around him sat the pack lords, commanders, and senior judges of the northern realm. For one stunned second, no one moved. Then Marcus recovered. "My king." He sounded almost relieved. Gideon walked down the center aisle with Evelyn on one side and Elias on the other. Ash followed behind. Marcus's eyes settled on Evelyn. Calculation returned. "Your Majesty," he said, "you should not be here in your condition. My condition is no longer your concern." A murmur moved through the chamber. Marcus lifted his chin. "The council has evidence that your judgment may be compromised." "By an Omega?" Gideon asked. "By a conspirator." Evelyn stepped forward. "Then let us discuss the evidence." Marcus smiled faintly. "You are accused, Miss Hart. You do not conduct this hearing." "No," Evelyn said. "But I know when someone forged my work badly." She placed the false Moonridge order on the table. "This document uses relay code M17. Marcus barely glanced at it. A code. Anyone could know. Not anymore. After retirement, every M17 record was removed from active stations and transferred to the Central Military Archive. She looked directly at him. "Your archive." The room quieted. Marcus's expression did not change. A clerical coincidence. Evelyn placed the supply record beside it. Then explain the black fur resin. Gideon lifted the broken arrow shaft. The arrows used at the bridge were treated with military waterproofing issued to units under Marcus's command. Marcus spread his hands. I command thousands of men. Supplies are stolen. Then perhaps the horse was stolen too, Evelyn said. Elias stepped forward with a metal horseshoe, recovered from Marshal Thorne's chestnut gelding, missing a triangular corner. It matches the print beneath the bridge support. For the first time, Marcus's calm slipped. Then he laughed. You are building treason out of a code, resin, and a horseshoe. No, Gideon said. He placed the final ledger on the council table. We are building it out of this. Marcus looked down. 3 border companies had been ordered to mobilize 2 days before the assassination attempt. Signed by Marcus Thorne. One judge leaned forward. You anticipated an emergency before the king disappeared? Marcus said nothing. Gideon's voice lowered. You were preparing the war before you broke the bridge? Marcus looked around the chamber and understood denial was no longer enough. His shoulders straightened. Peace has made this kingdom weak, he said. The Eastern Pacts test our borders because they know you will negotiate before you strike. War is coming whether you admit it or not. So you tried to manufacture one, Gideon said. I tried to save what your caution would destroy. Marcus's hand moved. Evelyn saw the dagger first. He lunged toward her. Gideon intercepted him. Steel struck steel. Marcus drove forward twice, but Gideon turned the third blow and slammed him against the council table. Ash hit Marcus from the side. The dagger skidded away. Enough, Gideon said. Elias's men seized Marcus. As they dragged him upright, Marcus glared at Gideon. You will lose this kingdom. Perhaps, Gideon said, but not by becoming you. One lord rose. Your Majesty, the Omega should still be detained until every charge is reviewed. Old fear crossed Gideon's face, then disappeared. No. He turned toward the council. Evelyn Hart saved my life. Then I imprisoned her, because false evidence was arranged to flatter the fear I already carried. Evelyn looked at him. He did not look away. Marcus manipulated the evidence. I chose to trust it. That decision was mine. Silence filled the chamber. I was wrong. No excuse. No crown to hide behind. Gideon turned to Elias. Recall the border companies. Arrest every officer involved in the false transfer. Restore Evelyn Hart's name to the relay register immediately. Marcus was taken away in chains. The regent's staff remained on the table. Gideon stepped toward Evelyn. For a moment, the council vanished around them. I was wrong, he said again. Evelyn held his gaze. Yes, this time, he accepted the answer. Outside, the council bells stopped before the armies marched. 3 months later, Marcus Thorne stood before the High Court without his sword, title, or anyone willing to defend him. The evidence held. The forged orders, the resin, the horse at the bridge, the mobilization signed before Gideon's ambush. 2 officers confessed to arranging the false transfer meant to end with Evelyn dead on the prison road. Marcus was stripped of rank and sentenced for treason. But Gideon did not stop there. The relay system was rebuilt. No route could be altered by one office alone. Retired codes were destroyed instead of stored under military control. Emergency orders required 2 independent seals. Every accused keeper was guaranteed a hearing. Evelyn noticed the irony immediately. You nearly had to lose a kingdom before you learned to distrust paperwork. Gideon looked up from the reform decree. I am learning to distrust people who tell me paperwork cannot lie. That is better. Evelyn returned to Moonridge before winter ended. Her name was restored to the relay register. So was her father's. A formal inquiry found that the dispatch used to disgrace him years earlier had passed through the same archive network Marcus later exploited. Marcus could not be tied to that forgery, but the judgment against Thomas Hart was overturned. When the corrected register arrived, Evelyn read the line 3 times. Thomas Hart, relay keeper, cleared of misconduct. Evelyn Hart, keeper of Moonridge. She closed the book carefully. That evening, she cried for the first time since the prison road. No court, no king, just the truth finally written where the lie had once lived. 2 weeks later, another document arrived. Royal Master of Relay Routes. Evelyn rode south to reject it. Instead, she spent 40 minutes arguing with Gideon about the terms. The department cannot answer to military command. Agreed. Relay keepers choose their own deputies. Agreed. No commander gets retired codes without civilian authorization. Agreed. Evelyn narrowed her eyes. You are agreeing too quickly. Gideon leaned back. I learned who reads the road better. She accepted. Not because he was king, because the work mattered. By spring, Evelyn sat at the council table where men who once would not have noticed a relay keeper now waited for her route reports before moving soldiers, grain, or messengers. She never became quiet to make them comfortable. Gideon never asked her to. Ash spent most meetings asleep beside her chair. Months after the bridge, Gideon came to Moonridge alone. No guards, no banners, only Ash beside his horse. Evelyn opened the door. You know there is a road now. I was informed. And yet, you arrived after dark. I was hoping the keeper might tolerate poor planning. She rarely does. Ash pushed past Evelyn and went directly to the fire. I was not inviting you. The wolf settled onto the rug. Gideon almost smiled. Inside, the station looked almost exactly as it had the night everything began. Same desk, same stove, same ledger, no blood. Gideon stopped beside the cot where she had first treated him. Do you remember what you told me? I told you many things. You said you did not save a king. Evelyn looked at him. I saved a bleeding man. Yes. He stepped closer. I am not bleeding now. That is an improvement. For once, we agree. He looked strangely uncertain. I am not asking you for anything as king, he said. No title, no duty, no promise. Evelyn waited. I am asking as the man you dragged out of the snow. His voice softened. May I stay for dinner? She let him wait, making sure he understood the answer belonged to her. Then she opened the door wider. You can come in. Ash lifted his head. I was not talking to you. Gideon laughed. A real laugh. He stepped inside. Evelyn reached for his hand before she could change her mind. His fingers closed around hers. Months ago, she had saved a bleeding stranger because leaving him to die had been wrong. Tonight, she chose him because when he failed, he did not hide behind the crown. He changed what his failure had exposed. And finally, Evelyn could see the man without the king getting in the way.